Yo, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to Bullony Basketball. As you can see, it's just me today. We're kind of with the NBA season ending. It's only fitting, we end this thing the way it started, where it was just me. First episode of the season, it was just me, so I figured why not. But yeah, basically throughout this episode, just kind of gonna be recapping the finals. How impactful, I guess, the finals was in certain aspects for certain players, both teams, and, also just some of the top and bottom moments of the season. Um, but yeah, it won't be too long of an episode, so grab your popcorn and, we can just hop right into it. But starting off, with the NBA Finals, anyone watching this by now most likely knows that the Golden State Warriors are NBA champions again. The fourth time in 8 years, seventh time overall, fifth time in with Golden State in the name. The other two were the Philadelphia Warriors. Uh, so yeah, at this point, I think a lot of people were questioning like the dynasty because it was kind of like weird the way that it started out where it was the big three with Curry, Clay, and Draymond, and that for one ring, and also winning 73 games. Then the next two championships it was with Kevin Durant, so it was kind of hard to classify this dynasty as a whole. But I think maybe this solidified that it starts with maybe the core three. You can even throw Iguodala in there. He did win a championship again. He's won all four of them with them in the past 8 years. So, got to give him credit there. I think for this championship, though, it's probably the strongest in terms of like value of the four championships. Like I said, when Kevin Durant was on the Warriors, people didn't really want to give it the due credit. And in 2015, not only were they playing injuries in terms of the finals, like everyone talks about Kyrie and Kevin Love, but Dwight Howard had a bad back in the conference finals, and then also Tony Allen went down. Mike Conley, he was wearing like a face mask in that series in the second round, and then Drew Holiday in the first round, like he wasn't 100%. So there were a ton of injuries that year, and people like to hold it against the Warriors. Now, was this the perfect run? Was there no injuries? No. People could say like, oh, Jamal Murray and Michael Porter Jr. in the first round, or Ja and Desmond Bain in the second round. Steven Adams missed a few games. Dylan Brooks, like you could question whether he deserved to miss that much time or not for the hard foul on Gary Payton II. But I think in terms of like the last two rounds, like there really wasn't anything to be said. And I think most people thought the Warriors were a shoo-in anyways to get to the conference finals. So maybe the injuries in the first two rounds, not quite as meritable. I don't think the Nuggets at this point would have been able to even contest with them. Now, maybe Memphis could have. So that's fair. But I don't know. I think they probably were still expected to get to the conference finals. I had them going there at least. And I had them playing the Phoenix Suns, who didn't even get there. And the Warriors can't do anything about that. They just didn't get there. And then in the finals, they play a team like the Boston Celtics, who we're going to get into in a bit. But I just think this is probably the strongest of the four. Like Steve Curry even said, like this is probably the most surprising because I know a lot of people wanted the Warriors to be like an underdog type of, take on that role. And they weren't really underdogs because I feel like a lot of people were still thinking like, this team's healthy. Like they could win the whole thing. Or they're at least going to be one of the best teams in the league. But maybe that like supreme dominance level wasn't quite there. When they had Kevin Durant, everyone thought they were just going to win every year. Even the year they lost to the Raptors because they just got injured. People were like, if Kevin Durant's playing, like, well, we're winning. But I think when they won 73 games, the year before that when they won 67 games, a lot of people were like, oh, the Warriors are going to win it all. This year, it didn't really feel like that. Maybe early on you could have thought like that. There were people saying, are these Warriors going to break the 73-9 record like way early in the season? I think when they were like what were they, like 18-2 or something, like really good in the first 20 games. But they leveled out a little bit. I think they ended up winning 53 games. Part of that was also like injuries in the season too. So, I mean, that also plays a part. But yeah, I think a lot of people were thinking maybe the Suns were the favorites to come out of the West. There were a lot of people I saw picking Memphis. People were saying if, Kawhi comes back in time, maybe the Clippers pull off a miracle run. So I guess it wasn't just like all Warriors like in past years. There was a little bit more balance, and that's probably why it was the more surprising championship. So, I mean, I got to give him credit there. Klay Thompson, who probably deserves more credit because, this guy literally missed the last 2 years, and then he comes back, he's instantly back in the NBA Finals. His last 6 seasons he's played, they've been in the NBA Finals, which is pretty crazy because the last 2 years they missed the playoffs without him. Draymond Green is a 4-time champion now. Like I said, Andre Iguodala. Andrew Wiggins is a 1-time champion. Who would have thought that, like, with that big three of Cat, Levine, and Wiggins. And although Wiggins probably is the worst of the three, I don't think he's on those two guys' level. But he did play really good, and I was actually a little surprised. He was probably their second best player in the finals, and maybe even the conference finals. It would probably be either him or Looney, I'd say, for the second best player in that series. But, yeah, he was very impressive. Jordan Poole showed up. He kind of leveled off a little bit, though. The first round, he was really good against Denver. But I think that kind of came naturally, like when he moved to the bench. And then, of course, Steph Curry now has 4 championships. I already see a lot of people, they're comparing him like with LeBron. They're like, oh, now they both have 4 rings. You still even got people saying like, oh, Curry really has more because the bubble didn't count. But yeah, it's just kind of funny. I think the one thing, though, about the Warriors is they kind of made Boston look small. Like everyone talked about Boston all playoff long. Like when they played the Brooklyn Nets and they threw multiple guys at Kevin Durant. And now that worked because obviously the Nets didn't have the options around Kevin Durant to, bypass that other than maybe Kyrie Irving. And outside of game 1, he didn't really shoot well in that series. But, the Warriors, they got plenty of threats. Like they got Klay Thompson, they got Jordan Poole, they got Andrew Wiggins. I mean, Gary Payton II was hitting threes in that game that Curry was struggling. Like that was the one where they really keyed in on him. So there's only so much you could do. I honestly thought their game plan early in the series was probably going better, where they were just letting Curry get his, and it was kind of taking away the rhythm of a lot of the other players. But I mean, yeah, like we could progress here into Boston, and I mean, why it didn't go well? They were up 2-1, and I thought personally, Game 4 was the series for them. I thought if they win this game, they're gonna be champions. If they lose this game, they're not gonna be champions, because now it gives the Warriors home court advantage again. And now I still even thought, going into Game 6, I'm like, there's no way the Celtics lose 3 games in a row. No way. I wasn't even thinking that. I'm like, this is definitely going 7. I was wrong about that. And it did end in 6, and it was pretty embarrassing. Like, Game 6 was the most embarrassing, too. I don't know what is with it this year, with all these embarrassing losses, like, in the playoffs. I thought it was just surprising. But yeah, I think honestly though, like they started complaining for fouls, not moving the ball, too much isolation. They started looking like early season Celtics when they were like 18-21 and they were like the 11 seed or the 12 seed. That's what they started to look like, I think, after Game 4, starting like during Game 5. But Game 4, they were winning most of that game. even though they were playing terrible. Like I thought they're playing awful, and they still might win. But you can't mess around like that against a team who has championship experience like the Warriors, and naturally it ruined them. Even in Game 5, they started off awful. Like they kept turning the ball over. That's the biggest culprit, I think, in all this. They just keep turning the ball over. They really, I mean, I gave the Warriors credit, and the Warriors deserve credit, but I've never seen a team quite beat themselves in the finals like I saw the Celtics do in this series. And it was hard to watch, honestly. Like there were times it was just not even entertaining. Like it felt like I don't even know. Like I don't even know how to explain it. Maybe you guys get what I mean, but like I don't know. It like too many like I don't. It's just like they weren't really playing smart at all, and it's confusing when you had so many mismatches. Like we mentioned, Boston had the size advantage on the Warriors, other than maybe like Looney or something, but he didn't even start for a chunk of the series anyways. So they had the size advantage, and they never took advantage of it. And I know people are crediting Steph Curry for his defense. As much as I'm gonna give credit to Steph Curry here when we talk about him, I'm not buying that. I'm not. I'm not buying it for the fact that the Celtics just made bad decisions. Like there was a time Al Horford backed down on Curry. He stepped through on him. He gave up on the play, and he just passed it to the corner to I think like Grant Williams or Tatum or one of them. Marcus Smart stepped through, had an easy layup, and he shot it like with his left hand, like a hook shot. Like these are not the shots that are gonna win you games, especially in the finals. And this experience thing, I've been seeing so much on it about how the Warriors had experience before the finals, and the Celtics didn't. Now, finals experience, yes, but just in terms of broad experience, would you believe that the team that's played the most playoff games in the last 6 years is the Celtics? Would you believe in the last 5 years it's still the Celtics? And I say those 2 years because that's ever since Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum were both drafted. So ever since these guys have been drafted, they have played more playoff games than any other franchise in the NBA. And they couldn't even show up. So ever since the last 6 years, the Celtics have played 92 games, and second is the Warriors. They're at 82. In the last 5 years, the Celtics are at 74, and then second is the Bucks with 67, and the Warriors are third with 65. But the point is, like, this team had more than enough experience. They've been around long enough, and that streak probably even continues if you go back to 2014 with Marcus Smart. Obviously 2016 is when Al Horford was on the team. So like all these guys have been like in this culture in playoff experience games for long enough, and for them to just fold like that, it was pretty embarrassing. I get it, finals experience, not quite there, but when you're up 2-1, I don't know. It was really weird, especially when this is the same team that was down late to the Nets in Game 1 on their home court. This is the same team that was down 3-2 to Milwaukee, the defending champs. This is the same team that was down 2-1 to Miami, and they won all those series. So I don't know. That was probably the worst part of it. Jason Tatum had very bad efficiency in this series. He didn't even really look invested in the game. Like there was a point when I was watching, and I was starting to question like whether Jason Tatum actually likes basketball. Like it was getting to that point because some of the things he was doing just didn't even make sense. And Jaylen Brown, I know Jaylen Brown's a smart guy. Okay, when I graduated high school, I had a 4.0 GPA. Jaylen Brown is probably one of a few NBA players who could probably even say that as well. So the fact that he's up there, I think he even got like a NASA internship, all this other stuff. I know he's a smart guy, but this dude has terrible shot IQ. Like, I don't know how many times he would just force the ball into the paint. He's not a very good ball handler. I think any Celtics fan will tell you that straight up. And I don't get it. Now, part of this, though, I think it falls on the coach, Ime Udoka, who, yes, he is a rookie coach. I get it. He is young. I mean, a decade ago, he was basically playing. I think he last played in the NBA like in 2011. But the point is that, like, you got to make adjustments. Like, you can't, like, I know he was kind of getting upset with his team. And, you know, sometimes just you got to have the right game plan. And I didn't really see much of a game plan adjustment for him. I know apparently he told them, like, stop talking to the refs, stop complaining for fouls, and that's great. Now, in that aspect, nothing really changed that much. Maybe a little better from Game 5 to Game 6. But in terms of, like, the play style, it was just, like, all over the place. Like, there wasn't even that many plays. I mean, I remember vividly a play where it was like a switch. Like, they lost two players. I think tracing Tatum. They were tracing him out to the three-point line, and Robert Williams got a wide-open dunk below the basket because two Warriors players, I think it was like Curry and Wiggins, or maybe it was Curry and Gary Payton. The point is, though, like, they got an open look there. And now it's like in, I think, the second quarter, end of the second quarter, and they were even saying, like, that's like the first play of the game I've seen like that. That's my point. Like, they weren't taking advantage of what they should have been throughout most of this series. And I'm going to say something that I don't think Celtics fans probably will like. But, you know, I've thought this for a long time. I haven't really said it that much. I don't even think I've ever addressed it on my show. But it revolves around Marcus Smart. And the Celtics will never, ever, ever, ever win a championship with Marcus Smart on their team. And you heard it here first. I don't care if you clip it. I don't care if you send it to Brad Stevens. It will not happen because he is not a championship level player. He simply isn't. And it's funny because in the series, you had Draymond talking like the Grant Williams, like, oh, he want to be like me and all this other stuff. Like, oh, he trying to be me so bad. You're close. There's a Celtic out there that wants to be like you, and his name is Marcus Smart. Because his antics are too much to overcome. Okay, he's very similar. He's very similar to Rajon Rondo when he played on the Celtics. The difference, though, is that Rondo actually has the intangible moves, and he actually performs way better down the stretch of big-time games. Okay, I was looking through Marcus Smart, his elimination games, and would you believe this? He only shot over 40% from the field in one of them. Over his 8 years of his career, right? And this is elimination game. There's about a dozen of them. He shoots 50 for 153 from the field, 32% from the field. That's what that is. 4 turnovers a game. And for a guy who said, you know, I'm the point guard now and I can handle these responsibilities, they just never asked it of me. 4 turnovers a game in the biggest games as well. Now, I get it. The other night wasn't really that turnover heavy, but he didn't do anything at all. And it's hard when you're asking. See, this is exactly why people didn't believe in the Celtics early in the year, because it was like, okay, Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown have to be the ones creating. There's no real point guard on the team. And then Marcus Smart was saying stuff like about how, it's hard, like, when we don't get the ball or something, like you can only do so much without the ball. I just don't get him whatsoever. And I don't think that they can win a championship with him. I think they need to get an actual true point guard. I get it, his defense, he was Defensive Player of the Year. But if you watch the series, like, he was mainly guarding Curry and getting exposed. Now, you might say, oh, that's Steph Curry. He's one of the greatest players ever. Okay, that's fair. But why was Derek White doing a much better job than Marcus Smart in guarding Curry? It just didn't make sense at all. And I don't think you can win with this guy. And I think, honestly, because of this, it might just be like a nightmare in disguise. Because now the Celtics, because they made the finals, they'll try and run it back for another year or two with Marcus Smart. Instead, last year they got eliminated first round, okay? If they had a bad year this year, missed the playoffs or lost first round again, they would probably shake it up. And that might be for the better for this team because I just don't know how this is going to work long term. This was kind of their chance. And now, like next year, you're going to have, well, you know the Warriors are going to be back. Okay. The Los Angeles Clippers are going to be healthy. The Bucks are going to have Middleton. So, I don't know. It's just, it doesn't look good, if you ask me. This was their chance. And I don't know if they're going to get back. You also got to realize, like, they were relatively healthy for the most part. I know they had some, like, injuries here and there. Like, Smart missed a game or two here and there. Rob Williams wasn't 100%. And outside of, I believe it was the Bucks series for Rob Williams, though, everyone was pretty much available, like, when necessary, when it mattered most. So that's pretty rare. And granted, it did happen for the Warriors as well, outside of maybe like Gary Payton II. But they also have the championship DNA, and they proved it in this series. So if I'm the Celtics, like that's a little concerning to me. Now, we could talk a little bit about this Steph Curry top 10 thing because everyone's saying, oh, Curry is top 10 now that he won the championship and the finals MVP. And, you know, now what I put him in top 10, I mean, if you guys have seen my videos, you know my top 10. But I don't know if I can put him in there quite yet. Now, top 15, probably. I could see it now. I think I had him like 19th or something actually before this season. And you might think that was already too low. But, you know, he definitely would elevate on the all-time list, in my opinion, no matter where you had him. But, yeah, I could probably see him maybe around top 15 or, like, very close to, or maybe even a little better, like 13, 12, something like that. Now, I also have Kevin Durant in my top 15, and I think it narrows the gap. I'm not too sure if I want to put Curry above Durant right now. I would probably still have Kevin Durant above him. And the reason why is because I think Kevin Durant has been doing this for so long. I mean, Kevin Durant was second in MVP voting since Curry was a rookie. And it took Curry like 5 years to become an all-star, you know, and it took him another year to become an MVP level player. So, I don't know. I think factoring all that in, you know, I think in a little sense, maybe this does damage Kevin Durant's legacy, but there's only so much you can do when you don't have a proper system around you. I mean, we also, I get it. Steph Curry is the system mainly for the Warriors, but at the same time, none of this stuff would be possible if he didn't have, you know, a great front office, a great situation, great teammates. So I think we have to consider all that. I wouldn't put him top 10 quite now. You have him top 15, I wouldn't mind that. I probably wouldn't have even really minded that even before, but I think, in my opinion, because I had him like kind of barely top 20 before the season, I would probably be more willing to put him top 15 or very close to. The point is, like, I mean, he elevates on my list for sure. I think he was right. So he was right below John Havlicek or something on my list. I'm putting over John Havlicek now for sure. Now, the other guys, you know, Dr. J, Moses Malone, Karl Malone, and then that's when Kevin Durant comes in. Like, you could probably put him somewhere in there, whether below all those guys, above all those guys, somewhere in between. I'm not really going to get too much into the nitty-gritty of that, but yeah. So that's where I stand on that. Now, in terms of this trade that happened the other day, we could just touch on this real quick. and that is Christian Wood going to the Dallas Mavericks. And the Houston Rockets get Trey Burke, Sterling Brown, the 26th pick, Marquise Chris, and Boban. Boban gets traded from his buddy Luka. They really want to break Boban's heart because they traded him from Tobias Harris first of all, and now they're trading him away from Luka, and those are all like such close guys. Maybe he'll develop a relationship with Alperen Sengun or something like that. I don't know, but I think this trade is decent. I don't really know how to feel about it. Like, the Rockets didn't really get anything huge for Christian Wood, and I didn't really expect them to get what people thought. I think trade packages were trying to make him out to be like a top 30 player in the league. That's too far for Christian Wood. I think he's just like Jeremy Grant. On his own team, it would be a very bad team, like if he's the star player. But in a winning environment, he could be the fourth or fifth guy, like fourth or fifth option or something like that. Or, fourth or fifth guy. See, I think they might make him into the second or third guy on this team. It's not championship level, if you ask me. Maybe it does make him a bit better. Or maybe they're doing it maybe because they think Brunson will leave and got to make up for that offensive firepower somewhere, but I don't know. Then it would just put a hole at, their off-ball guard, and, they do get some size with Wood, but, who would fill that role? Would it be Spencer Dinwiddie? Would they slide him to the 2? But then that also hurts your bench. So maybe the Mavericks improve a little bit, but I don't know how I feel about that really. But we could talk about just a little bit from the season, top 5 lowlights and highlights. I did rank them. I don't think it really matters. But here we go. All right, so for my top 5 lowlights, I think number 5 I got James Harden. And it's not necessarily because of his play, even though he didn't really look like the James Harden that we remember. But it's just like the whole situation with the Nets. Because it was kind of toxic. They might have, if he was healthy with Kyrie and Kevin Durant, they might have won the championship this year. Who knows? But now we'll never know. Now he's in a situation in Philly. It's not looking too great there necessarily. And it just made the whole situation a little bit weird. Number 4, I will go with the Julius Randle tease in New York. The Knicks, they were the 4 seed last year, had their best season in ages, since Carmelo Anthony, basically. And I think people thought, the 4 seed was pretty high last year, so I'm sure a lot of people didn't think they would be maybe 4th again. But they did add Kemba Walker. They did have Evan Fournier added to the team, so they thought they'd add more offensively. And offensively, it never really fleshed out, and then defensively, it took a huge hit. Also didn't help that, their center logjam, Mitchell Robinson, Nerlens Noel, both those guys were injury-prone almost all year long. Derrick Rose was out since December, so, you're not going to win many games when you have some injuries, but Julius Randle this season just looked uninterested. He got a bag. Now it seems like he's just content, and it kind of makes you wonder if it was just a fluke season. I guess next year will probably be the official determination of that. Number 3, I got the Suns Game 7 embarrassment against Dallas. There's no words to describe what even happened. I don't think I've ever seen something like that. Maybe in the bubble, like with the Clippers, but even that wasn't as bad because, there was really no home court edge, no matter what people say. And even then, it was a way closer game. It was half as big a margin as this. So, I don't know. Number 2, I have the Thunder getting smoked by the Grizzlies by 73 points. I'm sure you probably didn't remember that was in this season. But it is, and it set an NBA record for the biggest blowout in NBA history. And then number 1, I mean, would it even be right if I didn't put the Lakers on here? Everything, and I just put LA Lakers, everything, because everything was bad. The Westbrook issue, AD's durability, LeBron, I think, made himself look like a fool this year with all the tweets that he put out, like, keep talking about my squad, and then he's like, I promise we'll be better, and it just got worse and worse and worse. So, top 5 highlights of the season. I didn't want to include much playoff stuff, I guess, or in terms of like the championship. But number 5, I had the Cleveland Cavaliers. I think they had a very impressive year. Maybe it was just because of the All-Star game in Cleveland. It could be. But I don't know. I think they're going to be an interesting team moving forward. Number 4, I got the R.J. Barrett game winner because this was huge. Even though the Knicks had a bad season, I thought this was probably one of the most impactful single buzzer beater of the season because it kind of turned the Celtics around. You know, when Jaylen Brown said the energy is about to shift, and you got to give him credit, it did, because they were an 11 seed. They ended up getting to the NBA Finals, almost won it all. Now, they did kind of fall apart, but I think if you would ask someone at that point in time if they're going to make the finals, they'd probably look at you like you're crazy. Number 3, I have the Suns franchise record season. It wasn't all bad for the Suns. I mean, they did set a franchise record of 64 wins, so you got to give them credit there. Number 2, I had to be a little biased and put, my Bulls, DeMar DeRozan, back-to-back game winners. First guy to do it on back-to-back days and back-to-back years as well with the same thing. I was at the one where he hit the shot against the Pacers, and that still is like such a cool moment. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to the Bulls next year. Hopefully we do well in the draft coming up in a few days here. But yeah, that was awesome. We were the first seed too at that time. Remember when Lonzo Ball was healthy, we were number 1. And then number 1. I had to put it here simply because of how the season just transpired with the Warriors, Steph Curry winning Finals MVP. But I put his 3-point record because that's something that I believe Shaq said won't be touched for another 50 years. And he might be right. I mean, we'll have to see. Some people probably won't even be able to see if it's true or not, unfortunately. Hopefully I'll be able to. But I mean, yeah, I think honestly that's basically it. I want to before I go, I want to thank a few people. Shout out to the people who, hit me up in the DMs on Instagram and Twitter. Always talking to me about like new ideas and stuff like that. Shout out to all my guests throughout the season. Clutch Talk, Price, Dane, Triple Play Fantasy, Suns Geek, Hindu, Romp 2.0, Hunter, Johnny, of course, Johnny, Xander, my man, Logix, Jelson, Spawn Hour, A1 Hoops, Rich Sports, Speakeasy Sports, Sam Darnold's Forehead, Courtside, Coach Evan, Rick Knows Hoops, Mojo 99, Sports Wikipedia, Thea, and of course Haley Jordan. I mean, like I said in the very first episode, that I wasn't really sure how this season was gonna go, but I think the guests kind of helped make it really more interesting. If you notice, I had 24 guests on there. You see my YouTube name. That says it all, really. But yeah, that's basically going to do it. Hope you guys enjoyed. Thank you guys for watching once again. And, I'll see you soon. So, yeah, I'm out. Peace.